news, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo-Wempe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, CAF President is confident that the 2025 AFCON will go ahead in Morocco, and British number one Emma Raducanu retired in the first round of the Wuhan Open. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Oh, thank you to Jalani Tulongwepe with our news update and Figile Lingwati with our sports headlines. It is 12:06 Central African time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's Audio Bouquet Channel 802, OpenView Channel 628 and on www.channelafrica.co.za as well as on the SABC Plus app available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Now join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, today on #Africa Update Us, we focus on Israel and the Hamas attack. Today marks 2 years since Hamas attacked Israel and then the war on Gaza. What are you hoping to see coming out of the ongoing talks between Hamas and Israeli negotiators in Egypt regarding U.S. President Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan? Let us know your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126 #Africa Update Us.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:08 Central African time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our Amajita are through to the knockout round of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Be with us this Wednesday at 21:30. That's 9:30 p.m. Central African time as South Africa's under-20s face Colombia, streaming live on SABC Plus. And there's more. Other under-20 World Cup matches are streaming live on SABC Plus with selected fixtures on SABC Sports Channel and SABC One. Wave the flag, Mzansi, stand up for Amajita, FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Amajita coverage on SABC Plus, powered by SABC Sports.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
We go to Uganda, where the big focus is Uganda's Minister of State for Disability Affairs, Asamo Helen Grace, has underscored the urgent need to strengthen social protection systems and promote full inclusion of persons with disabilities in all government programs. Speaking on the margins of the South Africa-Uganda Disability Inclusion Study Tour, Minister Asamo said her delegation is in South Africa to learn from its social protection strategies, including the Disability Grant and Care Dependency Grant, with the goal of adapting similar approaches back home.
We have the National Planning Authority, we have my Minister of Gender, we have economists, we have people from finance, and all these people, UNICEF, we have come to see how can we work together with South Africa to improve the inclusivity of people with disabilities in our government programs. So particularly we have come here to learn more about the social protection strategies that South Africa does in supporting their people, because we know that they have a social protection mechanism which takes care of the people who are poor, people with disabilities, old people, people who don't have homes. And we want to learn those lessons and try to take them back home and see if we can put them into our policies and thereafter, of course, implement them. We are also starting what we call a child benefit program. And in that child benefit program, where a child with disability is really having multiple disabilities, are we able to tap into some knowledge in South Africa that we can be able to push back home and see that people with disabilities in totality are included? We're looking at the health sector. We're also going to discuss issues of education inclusivity, because we have laws, we have policies, but they are not yet to the level of implementation. So coming to South Africa as our sister country, because South Africa with us share a lot of issues, and right from democracy, issues of technical advice, issues of cooperation, and coming from the cabinet of the president, we come in and appreciate the role of South Africa. South Africa, in terms of disability, with Uganda, we are among the first countries to sign the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. We also came with a specific law for people with disabilities. But now we realize that having a specific law still brings exclusion. So we need to see how do we integrate disability as a progressive development program to include in all the programs that government has. Talk for Uganda, 16% of the population is disabled people. You can't ignore that population. This is a big population that should be included into the development agenda. And since we are signatories to the SDGs, we are saying leave no one behind, include people with disabilities, and ensure that we become part and parcel of the development program.
What sort of challenges have you identified on the ground when you scan the whole country with the figure that you have given us that almost a quarter of the population is disabled? The challenges that they're facing on the ground that enabled you to say, no, we have a friend who might also show us the way according to how, they have laid their own foundation and platform on how they're dealing with these challenges.
Issues of disability start right from society where we are born, right from our homes, that there's always a negative attitude towards a child with disability. Disability has broken marriages. You find the men run away and leave the woman. When it comes to employment, people look at a disabled person as a person who cannot work. So they judge you by your looks. They don't want to ask you questions. You come to a situation where you're a politician like me. People can't imagine we have a minister who is disabled, though she's for disability. So people ask, but why did the president want on a disabled one? They do not know that you have the capacity to do what any other person would do. So these negative challenges, negative attitudes we have in society, we need to demonstrate to the society that we are able. You see, sometimes people don't know what to do with us. We have to tell them what to do with us, because sometimes we blame people, but they don't know what to do with us. It's also strange to them because they have never seen us. And that's why now you see we are developing the agenda of inclusivity, because previously government used to say special schools for disabled, but there were no special jobs. So when you come out from a special school, the panel sees a blind person for the first time, a deaf person for the first time, and wonders, what do we do with this one? So the best thing is to send you away, because the interaction with the other world was not possible. So when we come here, because of those challenges of inferiority complex, challenges, people programming and forgetting that that population is not there, is what now brings us to South Africa to see how is South Africa doing. I admire South Africa because issues of disability are in the presidency, and we are told that the president meets the disabled people once in a year. That means that he listens and takes them as a people, and I think this is a good lesson that we now take. I want to thank my president. He's the only advocate, mostly in parliament, in the cabinet, who listens to me and says, okay, I think this is something which is correct. But because he also has a sister with disability, so he begins to appreciate that, oh, I had my sister, she had polio, but she's not useless. So that one, he understands the assignment. So whatever programs we have done, he has been one of the persons on the forefront to run the issues of disability. So our challenges are critical. When you talk of poverty, we are the poor of the poorest. So that's also a big challenge in society. So when you talk of socioeconomic activities, you need to target these people and ensure that they be able to come on board. In the provision services, sometimes we are left out. Look at people like albinos. They just need a sunscreen. Put them on essential drugs. But somebody has asked so many questions. They think it is a cream. They think it's something for bleaching. So there's a lot of questions that every time you have to explain, you have to ask, you have to inform them. You look at the areas of rights to maybe just driving a car and owning it. They can't imagine a deaf person should be driving. I know my country is now allowed them, but previously the police would stop you and say, why are you not talking? But you don't need to talk when you are driving. You need to know signs. And I thought this was the critical thing that they would learn. But the challenges are there, and we shall continue advocating. And that's why I call upon the country of South Africa with Uganda. We need to cooperate and see how we can draw an agenda where we advocate for disability in the whole of Africa, because we want to promote Pan-Africanism and see that the challenges a disabled person finds in South might be the same challenges a Ugandan one sees.
That was Uganda's Minister of State for Disability Affairs, Asamo Helen Grace, speaking to Channel Africa's reporter, Michael Mbewe.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 16 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today marks 2 years since the Hamas attack on Israeli civilians in southern Israel's kibbutzim and a music festival claiming nearly 1,200 lives. Israel's ongoing response has resulted in over 66,000 Palestinian deaths. The South African Jewish Board of Deputies has expressed grief over the loss of innocent lives and the widespread suffering caused by the conflict. The deputy's Gauteng chairperson, Danny Mosovitz, told Ronald Peary that for Jewish communities globally, October the 7th is a day of profound mourning.
As the 7th of October 2025 comes by, we are all thinking of 2 years ago, the 7th of October 2023, which saw the largest number of Jews killed since the Holocaust. It was a devastating day for world Jewry, in which 1,200 people were killed and 250 were taken hostage by Hamas. So obviously we are definitely a community. It's a very, very somber day. But it does look like there could be some hope on the horizon with a possible peace deal on the table.
Now, how do you balance the grief of Israeli victims with concerns about the escalating humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
That is a huge concern for us as the Jewish community. We are devastated by the loss on both sides of the innocent, of course, the Gazan civilians who have been casualties of this devastating war. Our hearts break for the women and children and innocent men. Unfortunately, it's war. And this is what happens. And that's why we welcome a peace deal, which will hopefully be coming soon.
And then as the Jewish community in South Africa, how do you view South Africa's vocal criticism of Israel's actions in Gaza?
It's really unfortunate that the South African government has not been able to play a meaningful role in the peace negotiations. It would have been such a proud moment for us if our government had been around that table negotiating something that is really meaningful and lasting. We are a proudly South African community, the Jewish community, and it's unfortunate that other countries like Qatar, they have played such meaningful roles, and South Africa, unfortunately, has been quite divisive on this issue.
Now, what are your thoughts on the South African delegation, which consists of several prominent South Africans who were detained in Israel while en route to Gaza to provide aid to affected civilians? What do you make of the detention and subsequent release and deportation back to South Africa?
There are good sources that are saying there was no aid on board those ships on the very same day that these so-called human rights activists were taken into detention and arrested. There were other prominent South Africans actually handing out aid in Gaza. So I worry about the theatrics and the kind of sanctimonious and self-righteous motives on board this flotilla, because there are actually people who are doing very meaningful work on the ground. And I worry that this was really just for self-promotion.
From your perspective, what are the critical elements that are needed for meaningful negotiations towards peace and de-escalating further violence?
So I think from Israel's perspective, it has always been, the conditions have always been to release the hostages and to demilitarize Hamas so that there is a lasting peace, that there is a negotiation where both parties trust one another. The conditions have never changed. Since the 8th of October, those were the conditions of peace, to release the hostages. There are still, I believe, 48 hostages who are still being held by Hamas. So that, and for Hamas to drop their arms and, demilitarize.
That's South African Jewish Board of Deputies Gauteng Chairperson Danny Mosovitz speaking to Ronald Peary. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Africa for Palestine Communications and Campaigns Manager Ali Komapi. Ali, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu, and thank you for having us.
Now, Ali, Israeli authorities have notified DIRCO that South African citizens detained in relation to the global Sumud flotilla are set to be released and repatriated via Jordan. If I'm not mistaken, earlier on there was information that they had arrived in Jordan. But what's your response to this development and just the whole... the whole saga, the whole picture that we saw unfolding?
Firstly, they are in Jordan. It's welcomed. Their families will be happy to see them. There's a video out I saw just now. Mandla Mandela sending a video with not only South Africans but other activists who are on the flotilla. And we welcome it. We think it's great. They must go back to their families. We could only imagine what the children and the family members were thinking when they were in their horrific conditions in Israeli dungeons. So we welcome it. But the whole entire situation, Lulu, we can't have it. Israel has become a pariah state. Israel has become a law unto itself internationally. And we've said this before, and multiple people have said it before, that they didn't have jurisdiction, they didn't have a right, it was not their territory. They had no reason to abduct the South Africans. And the South African government has said it's an abduction, the United Nations has said it's an abduction, everybody says it's an abduction. They do not have any reason to have abducted them. It's just uncalled for. Secondly, it's an aggression against South Africa. Quite simply, it's an act of war. These South Africans who are carrying the South African flag on these boats are protected under international law, and they cannot be arrested. Lastly, this entire idea, and I heard you talking to the South African Jewish Board of Deputies just now, there's an entire idea that South Africans who were on these flotillas had some ulterior motives. Why don't they just go to Gaza through? No. The Israeli apartheid regime since October 7th of 2023 has killed volunteers from Doctors Without Borders. They've killed United Nations volunteers who are giving aid. They've killed Palestinian civilians who are in the press, who are medics, who are nurses, and so on. Palestinians and international aid givers have been killed in Gaza. There's no reason that Israel says no. They could have entered Great and they could have killed them. So there's no reason. Absolutely, there's no sound reason why Israel would do this to South Africans.
Now, there claims that in the flotillas that there was no aid, firstly, and then there has been a claim that this was just a publicity stunt. What's your take on that?
I mean, it's absolutely pathetic. And this is echoed by the South African Jewish Board of Deputies. And we must really put it on record that the South African Jewish Board of Deputies is a fringe group in South Africa that represents the proxies and represents the views of apartheid Israel in this country. They do not represent the entire Jewish community. Jewish people in South Africa are not a monolithic, and we do not represent all of them. There's videos, there are pictures. And of course, even when the boats were on their way, people like Mandla Mandela were showing videos and pictures of formula, baby formula, sanitary towels. They were carrying food in cans and so on. And by the way, when they were in Tunisia, if I'm not mistaken, where they were fetching more aid, There were videos and pictures of it. It's widely reported, by the way, by the press. It's not an Ali Komapi opinion. It's not a Mandla Mandela opinion. It's reported widely by Al Jazeera, by CNN, and other media outlets that show that there was 8 in the boat. It's just ridiculous. What they do, Lulu, is they will come to platform like this and they will lie openly and belligerently.
Now, Ali, today marks 2 years since the Hamas attack on Israeli civilians, which led to a significant loss of life and ongoing conflict. How does Africa for Palestine balance acknowledging the tragedy of the 7th of October with advocating for Palestinian rights and addressing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where over 66,000 Palestinians have lost their lives?
What we're not going to do, Lulu, and what we're not going to allow is for Palestinians and those who support the Palestinian cause to justify Palestinians' right to live. We're not going to do it. We're not going to allow it. The same way we did not allow South Africans to go around the world to justify why they were opposing apartheid in South Africa. Mandela and his folks did not have to justify why they wanted the state of apartheid South Africa to collapse so that there's freedom in this country. They were jailed, they were put in dungeons, but they did not have to go around justifying their actions. We're not going to justify Palestinians' actions. What we're going to do is speak to the root cause of the problem, which is the occupation. The problem here is not Hamas. The problem here is not the resistance movement in Palestine. The problem here is the occupation. The problem is the apartheid, similar to what was happening in South Africa. It would be preposterous in South Africa during apartheid days to say, no, was Mandela justified? How do we balance Mandela's action? No, the problem here was the apartheid regime. The problem in Palestine is the apartheid regime of Israel. The loss of life did not begin on October 7 in 2023. They were killing Palestinians way before that. The state of Israel that is established in 1948 is established on the ruins, on the bones, on the graves of Palestinians. Palestinians were killed way before October 7, and the entire charade that the problems started on October 7 are laughable.
Now, Ali, the South African Jewish Board of Deputies has criticized South Africa's government for perceived hostile rhetoric towards Israel. They've suggested that it hampers their peace efforts. How does Africa for Palestine view South Africa's current diplomatic approach to the Israel-Palestine conflict, including actions like the ICJ case against Israel?
Firstly, it's really rich coming from the South African Jewish Board of Deputies to talk about how the government diplomacy is working. These are the same people that supported apartheid in South Africa. Funny enough, I was just looking up at historical documents. The leaders of the South African Jewish Board of Deputies were whining and dying the likes of P.W. Porter when the ANC and their other comrades were in exile trying to fight for apartheid. We won't get any counsel. We refuse to take any counsel from organizations like the South African Jewish Board of Deputies. In fact, this is the trajectory, Lulu. South Africa, since Mandela came as a president, we had this moral authority, not only in the continent, but globally, to get into situations of conflict, to put people on the negotiation table because of our own history and to resolve situations. We've done it in Sudan successfully just now. We've done it in Lesotho in the past. We've done it in Zimbabwe in the past. We try to have the same approach to Palestine. Over the years, different presidents coming in, different diplomatic envoys going into Palestine, saying, let's sit on the negotiation table, let's see what we can concede, what we cannot concede, so that there's peace in the land. Through Yasser Arafat at the time of Mandela, through Abbas in the times of Mbeki and Zuma and so on. But it has not worked. The South African government is saying, we've been trying this, it does not work. Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing time and time again and expecting a different result. The South African government is not crazy, they are not insane. And we are saying, we've tried this. Over decades, we've tried to say, let's go to the negotiation table. And there's only one party that's what's willing to negotiate. There's one party that wants peace. There's one party that always says, let's sort this out, and it's Palestinians. The Israelis are not interested in peace. How many ceasefires have they violated? How many peace pacts have they violated? So the South African government has every right to say, let's look at other avenues to pressure Israel into negotiating with Palestinian liberation movement. The same way that South Africa was pressured. South Africa was not backed Apartheid South Africa did not, outside of their goodwill and good hearts, go to the negotiation table with the likes of the ANC. They were pressured, and through boycotts, through isolation, through expelling of diplomatic relations and severing of ties, they were forced to do it. This is what the South African government is doing. They're doing this from their own experience.
Well, Ali, we have run out of time and are going to have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. That's Africa for Palestine Communications and Campaigns Manager Ali Komapi ending that discussion. It is 12:30 Central African Time, and our news headlines up next with Jwalani Tulongwepe.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines. South Africa's International Relations Department has confirmed the safe arrival of flotilla activists in Jordan. This after Israeli forces detained them in international waters while en route to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights has ruled that the Democratic Republic of Congo violated women's rights through sexual violence committed by state security forces in South Kivu. And finally, Indonesian search and rescue teams have officially ended the recovery operation at the Al Kozni boarding school. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Jwalani Tulongwepe will be back at 1 o'clock, and we begin with football news. The African football boss Patrice Motsepe said on Monday he's confident the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations will go ahead in Morocco, the scene of daily anti-government protests for more than a week. Young Moroccans took to the streets on Sunday for a ninth straight night of protests, calling for an end to corruption and a change of government. The protesters have demanded reforms to social services, especially health and education, and voiced anger over social inequality. Morocco is scheduled to take the Cup of Nations AFCON from the 21st of December to the 18th of January at the 9 venues, with 24 national teams competing in the Premier African Football Competition. The Zimbabwean coach, embroiled in controversy for slipping his own player, has withdrawn from the upcoming 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifier against South Africa on Friday. Ngezi Platinum Stars coach Tekesho Chiragwi, who also serves as the assistant coach for the Zimbabwe national team, slapped his player McDonald Maguwe moments after Dynamos equalized in the 34th minute via an own goal from Brooklyn Katumba on Saturday. Following the incident, Chiragwi has since withdrawn from his post ahead of the World Cup qualifier against Bafana Bafana. Chiragwi, who had initially blamed his actions on emotions, has since issued a public apology. And now, Proteas Tasman Breds broke the record for the most centuries ever scored in a calendar year by a woman in one-day international cricket, when she notched up her fifth in the 2025 and helped the Proteas women beat New Zealand by a healthy 6 wickets yesterday. Crucially, this victory marks South Africa's first win of this year's ICC Women's World Cup, currently taking place in India and Sri Lanka. Brett says that although she enjoyed this one, she doesn't think it was her best.
This one was a bit fun. For some reason I was hitting the ball a bit better, but I think the best century was the one in Pakistan where Kapi and I batted for those long period of time. I think that was probably the toughest century that I've had to make. No, the one just before when I got the 100. Yeah.
She explained how the training camps at home have helped with her meteoric rise to stardom and how she's grown in her shot selection because of that.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of batting camps. Also the position where I stand, and also maybe just the way I play the shot a bit better. But yeah, I think I've just been working on it very hard. No, nothing very different. I've just tried to expand my shot selection a bit more, and I've been working very, very hard on that.
And tennis news, British number one Emma Raducanu retired from her first round encounter with American Ann Lee at the Wuhan Open. Raducanu looked devoid of energy and appeared to struggle with the hot and humid conditions as she trailed 6-1 and 4-1 in China. The world number 30th called for the trainer after falling a double breakdown in the second set and had her blood pressure and temperature taken before retiring. Earlier this week, play was suspended on all outdoor courts in Wuhan as temperatures reached 34 degrees Celsius. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Yo, listen up. Channel Africa is taking the digital game higher.
Check it out.
We are taking our digital platforms to the next level for you, our loyal listener.
You know where we at, right?
New website, a fresh new app, and they're on fire. Anytime, anywhere listening, Channel Africa brings the African sound to you.
It's the bomb, yo.
Stay locked. The future is crystal clear with us. Your new way to experience Channel Africa is almost here. Africa, stand tall and get ready. Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good afternoon, I'm Nosipho Zuma. In your business news this hour, Chief Economist at the Agriculture Business Chamber, Wandile Sihlobo, says the upcoming planting season promises to be favorable, with above normal rainfall and promises of a good crop harvest. The planting season for summer crops starts this month in South Africa. Farmers are expected to begin to prepare the land for the 2025-2026 planting season. Sihlobo says the planting season is starting for farmers in the eastern parts of South Africa who mainly grow yellow maize and soya beans. From mid-November, farmers in the western parts of the country will start planting crops including white maize and sunflower. Sihlobo breaks down the positive outlook.
So when we're looking at the AgBiz IDC, Agribusiness Confidence Index, which is the sentiment indicator in the sector, and it also remains fairly robust. What we take out of this is that South Africa will have another good agricultural season, both in terms of summer grains and oilseeds, but also generally overall in agriculture. So we are looking to have another year of growth, and that we will receive this summer rainfall to assist.
The South African government, through the information regulator, has taken the firm steps to clamp down on unwanted marketing calls, SMSs and emails. The new rules strengthen consumer privacy rights. Now, under a newly gazetted guidance note on direct marketing, companies can no longer use your personal information without your written consent. Once you opt out, they are legally prohibited from contacting you again. The changes are part of a broader effort to enforce the Protection of Personal Information Act and hold violators accountable. Nomzamo Zondi is the information regulator spokesperson.
This was because businesses are not adhering to the provisions of POPIA contained in Section 69 and other provisions of POPIA, such as obtaining consent first before marketing a product or service to data subjects. So there were disregards for the opt-in required by POPIA and also opt-out prescribed in POPIA and even in the Consumer Protection Act. So these are the challenges that we have been grappling with, and these two documents seek to actually assist data subjects and also enhance compliance by these organizations.
The African Development Bank will lend Nigeria $500 million this year as part of a $1 billion budget support program following economic reforms introduced by President Bola Tinubu. Bode Ayotunde, an executive director of the bank who represents Nigeria and Sao Tome and Principe on the AFDB board, says the loan could be approved before year end. Joey Lehodi has more.
Oyetunde made this comment on the sidelines of the Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja. Nigeria has embarked on a bold transformation since Bola Tinubu took office in May 2023. His government has removed fuel subsidies, unified foreign exchange rates, and launched tax reforms aimed at stabilizing public finances and attracting investment. Oyetunde added that the bank is focusing on fiscal and power sector reforms as part of its support program.
The Minister of Energy and Mines in Algeria, Mohamed Akrab, says the country will invest $60 billion in energy projects between 2025 and 2029 as part of a large-scale strategy to boost oil, gas and hydrogen development. Speaking at an energy forum in Algiers, Akrab said 80% of the investment will be directed towards upstream exploration and production, while the remaining funds will support refining and petrochemical projects. And finally, the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, says Toyota Motor is recalling almost 394,000 vehicles in the U.S. due to a rear view camera issue that may fail to display, reducing drivers' visibility and increasing the risk of a crash. The recall covers several models, including set in 2025 to 2022 to 2025 Tundra and the Tundra hybrid vehicles. According to the NHTSA, Toyota dealers will update the multimedia display software at no cost. Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 467. In Botswana is 13.20. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 325, and in Zambia is 80. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5.32. Russia is 82 rubles 59. India is 88 rupees 74. China at 7 yuan 14, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 22. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,959 and platinum at $1,615 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $65.18 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Soma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Africa Update. Your daily dose of African insights. With Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Nosipho Zuma with our business news. It is 12:42 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. A specialist insurer in the transport industry is warning all road users that road safety is not only about tar and traffic, but that it starts with people. October in South Africa is Transport Month, and it's worth remembering that misunderstanding relating to trucks and buses endanger road users. And to speak to us about this, we are joined on the line by Oscar Shabalala, Business Development Head and Stakeholders Relations at CTU Insurers. Oscar, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lily. Thanks for having us.
You know what they always say, that when you drive, you're not driving only for yourself, but the cars around you. Talk to us about now the misunderstanding relating to trucks and buses and how it endangers users, road users.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that question, Lulu. I think in the main, when you look at some of the accidents that have unfortunately we've seen on our road, we have found that some of our drivers, specifically bus and trucks, have been on the wrong side there too. I think these are isolated incidences, albeit the fact that it has been quite endemic, understandably. But I think we would like to obviously debunk the myth that, truck drivers and bus drivers just really don't care and are not considerate of other road users. I think that's not true, given the fact that we are very close, to these two industries. We consistently conversate, engage with operators, associations that, these operators are affiliated to. And they're as much concerned about this issue as we are. We do know that some of the operators within these two sectors actually have stringent punitive measures for their drivers, Lulu, in the event where a driver is found to have contributed through negligence resulting in an accident. These may lead to monetary fines. These may lead to even dismissal. So I think in our engagements, we've established that, bus and truck drivers are as concerned as we are.
Now, can you give us some practical tips on sharing the road with buses and trucks?
Absolutely. I think the first thing that we need to highlight, Lulu, is that, buses ferry passengers to ensure that they go about their economic activity, and trucks obviously transport goods that we need. So these are players that we definitely rely on for certain outputs in terms of, the economy. Having said that, I think it's very, very important that, when sharing the roads with these, high commercial vehicles, the correct level of distances need to be maintained. I think that's the starting point. I think one will appreciate that, you can easily swerve with a smaller vehicle versus a truck or a bus. So I think it's important to be cognizant of those variables, keeping the necessary distances, maintaining the relevant focus on the road. I think we found that people generally are on their phones, texting, and obviously losing concentration and focus. So I think it's just those types of behaviors, maintaining the necessary distances, and making sure that you are focused on the road so that you can measure the appropriate distances, and also exercising cooperation and patience. And this, of course, doesn't go to all other road users other than bus and trucks. It goes to everyone. Everyone has the right to use the road. However, it's very important that we exercise patience and cooperation, as it were.
Why is driver behavior as important as infrastructure?
It's very, very important, Lulu, in the context of when you think about the driver being the custodian of that high-valued asset. His behavior, his conduct on the road has an impact in terms of the safety of the journey. Of course, he remains at the mercy of other road users doing what they need to do as well. However, I think he or she has to take the necessary responsibility in making sure that he crosses his T's and dots his I's in terms of how he drives. You will appreciate that even in your own personal insurance, there's a reason why when you are looking for an insurance quote, you are asked questions like, have you ever been convicted of drunk driving? These are all indicators that insurers take into account as regards the assessment of risk. So a driver is very, very crucial in terms of us understanding the risk, but more importantly, making sure that all other road users are safe.
And how, Oscar, how do fewer incidents mean lower risks and more sustainable insurance options?
Very, very important. Again, to my previous point, Lulu, one of the questions that gets asked when you're taking out insurance is, have you had any accidents, in a specified period? The reason for that is, again, the assessment of risk. And the more your claims experience deteriorates or the more accidents you have, the more premiums you pay. And if insurance becomes unaffordable, what that does is it puts a strain on operators. And if operators cannot afford insurance, or if they have to pay high premiums, it limits their ability to grow. It limits their abilities to sustain their business, because insurance is a key component of their operational cost. So the more we keep, the cost of claims or incidences down, the more from the insurance perspective, we can come up with much more competitive and favorable and wallet-friendly insurance premiums that enable operators to then take some of the disposable income and employ it into growing the business, appointing more people within the business. I think those are important variables, especially in a country where unemployment is so endemic, Lulu.
Well, Oscar, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update, and I'll leave it there for today. That's Oscar Shabalala, Business Development Head and Stakeholders Relations at CTU Insurers, joining us on the line. It is 12:48 Central African Time.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
A Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating allegations by South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, has adjourned so that a proper witness statement can be provided. This is after committee members took exception to the evidence leader providing a statement which they say was a copy of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry where Mkhwanazi first testified. Our parties agreed on a short adjournment to address the matter following heightened tensions as the committee kicked off. Let's take a listen to the start.
As General Mkhwanazi's statement to Parliament. In the history of this Parliament, when our children and grandchildren and children of children are going to be looking for General Mkhwanazi's statement to Parliament, they won't find it in the archives. So it's not proper before us. And the legal team is to be blamed, not himself. Thanks.
Advocate Arense, can you please clarify that aspect?
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and in response to Honourable Malema. There is, with respect, a statement before this committee. The statement has now been sworn by General Mkhwanazi. We call it a supplementary statement because much of the factual background was covered extensively by the evidence leaders in the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. At the Madlanga Commission, General Mkhwanazi gave evidence under oath, although his statement was not declared under oath. Judge Madlanga administered the oath and he gave his evidence under oath. And it would therefore be quite surprising that his evidence before us today would differ materially from the evidence that he has already given before the Madlanga Commission. Our consultation covers the evidence and the statement that he gave at the Madlanga Commission. We've attempted in this supplementary statement to avoid a repetition. Much of what General Mkhwanazi has been heard by honourable members of this committee, by members of the public and the media. In fact, his statement was his redacted statement was also made available to the media. Honourable members, Honourable Chair, what you will find different to what was done in the Madlanga Commission is that there'll be a lot more engagement with General Mkhwanazi in relation to the issues that forms part of the terms of reference of this committee and not necessarily before the Madlanga Commission. And General Mkhwanazi has been alerted to that, and we've consulted him about it.
I take the hands. I think what the honourable member wants to know is whether the sole statement that General Mkhwanazi made at the Madlanga Commission, does it enjoy precedence over this? Because the understanding is that it is supposed to be an annexure to the statement that he has made with yourselves.
No, Honourable Chair. This statement enjoys precedence, but it incorporates by reference the Madlanga Commission.
What he's trying to say is that we have two institutions of government, Parliament and the Executive. And then Parliament has appointed an ad hoc committee.
Hence, I asked you to administer the oath. I will ask him whether this is an original statement that is made to this body.
Not thanks, Chair. I think the evidence leader, and this is so unfair on General Mkhwanazi. If we had a way, we should have just asked him to step out so that we can debate this. The senior counsel can't say that can't say the first statement to us is supplementary statement. That coming from a senior counsel, that the first statement you make is called supplementary statement. What law are you teaching people? It's unacceptable, and we can't help them, Chair, to cure it here in front of cameras. He has to go back and do the right thing. Because even if General Mkhwanazi says, this is my statement to Parliament, but what is written on this thing is supplementary statement. You can't change it. It's here before us. You are going to call General Mkhwanazi before this committee without an original statement. Where have you ever had a situation where you are told the first statement to be disposed is supplementary statement? If we're to ask the senior counsel, where's the original statement? He won't produce it. So if this is the original statement, let it be, let them go and correct it. So it serves here properly. And then we all proceed. And what makes it painful is that it doesn't matter whether colleagues want to do whatever they want to do. We debated this matter many times in this committee and emphasized that General Mkhwanazi will have to dispose a statement to the committee, even if it means cut and paste, as long as there is an original statement to the committee. So that answer doesn't even, General Mkhwanazi doesn't get involved anywhere. He was called, he was asked questions, he was being helped by evidence leaders on how these things can be done. So to invite him now and say, is this an original statement or not, it's incorrect. He gave them what they asked him to give them. If they were not satisfied, they were supposed to come back to us. Now, the legal team does exactly what we want when we appointed the legal team. That there's no legal team which is going to take decisions on behalf of this committee. Now he goes and takes a decision that a supplementary statement will be an original statement and brings it here and embarrass us in front of cameras like we are a group of people who don't know anything. He says General Mkhwanazi took an oath at Madlanga Commission, and therefore because he took an oath at Madlanga Commission, because we do what Madlanga has done, why should he take an oath here?
That's the voices of the evidence leader in Parliament, Advocate Norman Arendse, Economic Freedom Fighters leader Julius Malema, and the chair of the committee, Soviet Likhanyane, ending that report. It is 12:56 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Well, Tebogo Kuleni of The Upside is here, and You just got the tail ender of that, and I'm sure you saw what happened this morning.
You know,
Just a little bit of it.
I saw a bit of it, and I realized that when we were saying that South Africa is a film, it's a movie, and we're seeing everything playing out in the public space. And Umalema, actually, let me not get into. I'll tell you what's coming up on the show.
Yes, so what's coming up
today?
You
did a brilliant job rounding it up and playing that audio. Today we're talking about, nowadays you hardly have to go to the gym. You don't need to go to the gym now. You don't have to exercise because there are weight loss, so anti-obesity drugs and weight loss surgery that are helping people lose weight without putting in the effort. And we're going to be talking about how that is reshaping the future of health. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That people now can just take a pill, a Ozempic, weight loss surgery, and don't have to put in the work. The risks associated with that, we'll discuss some of those as well. And then later on, we discuss financial literacy. We get into a conversation with Adelaide Makube, who wrote a book about financial literacy, explaining these complex concepts in layman's terms so you and I can understand how we can better manage our monies.
And they can be quite complex.
They can be.
Cause a lot of confusion.
And that time's the most, it's simple for people who've been exposed to it. I mean, I remember back in the days I used to do accounting, and so these terms, assets, liabilities, all these things, it's easy, but if you are not exposed to it, it's very complex. But once you have a better understanding of how financial literacy works, you can better manage your own finances, better budget, better invest, and then you live a better life.
That's the upside coming up at the top of the hour with Tebohole Kuleni and Matiko Mosito. For myself, Lulu Gaboo and the Africa Update team, it's been a great one. Let's do this again tomorrow. Continue with us on our socials and let us know what your thoughts and your views are. And we say thank you to our producer, Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator, Mondli Mdambo, and social media, Sviso Hlope and Talent Butelezi. Thank you for joining us, and let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.